Hi, I'm Glenn with SA Gear Timing. I have been an engine rebuilder for over 30 years and have extensive experience replacing timing and balance shaft systems in a wide variety of engines. I would like to share some of my knowledge and experience with you today. SA Gear offer a full product line of timing components and kits for the General Motors Ecotec 2.4, 2.2, and 2.0 liter engines. Here's a look at the timing and balance shaft components we will be installing today. The timing chain set, part number 76209V1, comes with the chain, tensioner, guides, crank, sprocket, variable valve timing, cam sprockets, and solenoids, cam bolts, and oiling nozzle. SA Gear also offers a primary kit 76092 for earlier engines without variable valve timing. The balance shaft kit 76093 includes the balance shaft chain, tensioner, guides, and sprockets. Available also are sprocketless kits for both timing and balance shaft systems. 76092S and 76093S, but we recommend replacing all components. Timing system replacement can be done with the engine in the vehicle. To get started, remove the valve cover and the front timing cover to access the timing and balance shaft components. With the cover off, but before removing any components, rotate the engine and the number 1 top dead center on the exhaust stroke. This is the position the engine needs to be in for timing chain installation. To do this, there are only two things you need to look at: the position of the crankshaft key and the timing marks on the cam sprockets. When the crankshaft key is at 12 o'clock, number 1 is at top dead center. However, it is important that you are on the correct stroke. To verify the stroke, make sure the intake mark on the intake cam sprocket is at 2 o'clock position and the exhaust mark on the exhaust cam sprocket is at 10 o'clock position. If the cams are in these positions, you are ready for disassembly. If the cam marks are opposite, just rotate the crankshaft 1 full revolution and check again. If the timing system is failed, take care in rotating individual shafts due to possible piston to valve contact. This is indeed an interference engine. Let's start with the disassembly. Using a 32 millimeter or 1 1/4 inch wrench or socket, remove the primary tensioner. All the guides will be removed with the 10 millimeter socket. Start by removing the upper guide, then the other 2 guides. Remove both variable valve timing solenoids, for we are going to replace them. Next, remove the exhaust cam sprocket using an 18 millimeter socket on the cam bolt and 24 millimeter wrench on the camshaft hex feature to hold the camshaft in place. Discard the cam sprocket's torque to yield bolt. We will be using new bolts provided in the kit. Remove the tensioner guide through the cam drive chest. Next, using a 10 millimeter hex drive, remove the left hand guide bolt access plug. Then remove the left hand guide. Remove the intake cam sprocket and discard the torque to yield cam sprocket bolt. You can then remove the chain through the top of the engine. Remove the crank sprocket. Ensure the key stays in place. Now remove the oil nozzle. Then start removing the balance shaft components. Start with the balance shaft tensioner. Remove the balance shaft tensioner guide followed by the left hand balance shaft chain, guide, and then upper guide. Next, the balance shaft chain. Now remove the intake and exhaust balance shaft sprockets. For both sprockets, use a 5/32 punch or drill bit in the hole in the balance shaft bearing carrier. Engage a tooth of the balance shaft sprocket to hold the shaft and remove the bolt with the 15mm socket. Also, note, this is the water pump if you plan to replace the pump. Now is the opportune time to do so. We offer a kit 76209W and 76092W that includes the water pump. We are now ready to start the installation. The balance shaft parts will be installed first. Note the balance shaft system must be properly timed to prevent excessive engine vibrations. Start by installing the balance shaft sprockets. Remove to install the correct sprocket on each side. Located on the left is the intake camshaft sprocket, and on the right is the exhaust camshaft sprocket. It requires the same punch or drill bit used during disassembly. Next, install the inner crank sprocket. Next, install the balance shaft chain. It has 3 colored mark links. One is unique and the other 2 are similar colors. Start by aligning the uniquely colored link of the chain with the mark on the intake balance shaft sprocket. The mark on the intake sprocket should point straight up to 12 o'clock and align with the unique colored link. Next, move over to the exhaust side and align a similar colored link to the mark on the exhaust sprocket at the 6 o'clock position. Wrap the chain around the water pump and align the other similarly colored link to the mark on the crank sprocket at the 6 o'clock position. With the chain installed on all the sprockets, go back and make sure all marks are still aligned properly. We can now install the balance shaft chain guides. When installing the guides, make sure the chain's installed between the raised edges of the guide's contact surfaces. Start with the upper guide, follow by the left hand guide, then the tensioner guide. All balance shaft guide bolts are torqued to 89 inch-pounds. Install the balance shaft chain tensioner and torque the bolts to 89 inch-pounds. Ensure timing marks are all still aligned and then pull the activation pin. Next, install the oil nozzle, but make sure the passage is free from oil, sludge, and debris. Torque the bolt to 89 inch-pounds. First, install the crank sprocket. Next, install the primary timing chain. It has 3 colored timing mark links, 2 with the same color. Wrap the chain around the intake cam sprocket with the uniquely colored chain link aligned with the intake cam sprocket timing mark. Feed the chain down through the cam drive chest, ensuring the chain goes around both sides of the engine block. Casting bosses and work the bottom of the chain over the crankshaft nose. Wrap the timing chain around the crankshaft sprocket and line up the first matching colored link with the timing mark on the crankshaft sprocket at about 5 o'clock position. Install the tension arm through the cam drive chest and torque the bolt to 89 inch-pounds. Ensure the chain is riding properly in the channel of the tensioner arm. Next, install the exhaust cam sprocket with the exhaust timing mark on the similarly colored chain link alignment. Loosely install the cam sprocket bolt, leaving the cam sprocket indexing pin disengaged from the camshaft. Use a 24mm wrench to turn the intake camshaft counterclockwise to allow the exhaust cam sprocket indexing pin to properly engage with the camshaft. While doing this, you must also make sure that the crankshaft sprocket mark aligns properly with the appropriate chain link timing mark. If the crankshaft timing mark does not align properly, you can slightly rotate the crankshaft by hand in the appropriate direction and try again. Once the exhaust cam sprocket is engaged and all marks are aligned, hand tighten the torque to yield bolt. Install left hand guide and torque the bolts to 89 inch-pounds. Afterwards, install the left hand guide upper bolt access plug thread sealant on the threads. The plug should be torqued to 66 foot-pounds. Next, install the primary chain tensioner. This is the most critical step in the timing installation process. The EcoTech primary tensioner has been through 3 design changes. SA Gear supplies the latest version that supersedes all previous designs and is from the General Motors original equipment manufacturer. The tensioner comes deactivated with the plunger being able to be pulled in and out freely. SA Gear recommends activating the plunger prior to installation. This is done by pushing down on the plunger tip, allowing it to spring up. After activation, installation is very difficult. Failure to activate the tensioner is the leading cause of timing and engine failure. Before installing the tensioner, shift all the chain slack to the tensioner side using the harmonic balancer and note the amount of slack gathered above the crank sprocket. The activated tensioner is screwed into the block and should be torqued to 55 foot-pounds. Shine a light on the surface as you are doing the installation to make sure the groove tip of the tensioner plunger engages with the bevel pivot point on the back of the tensioner arm. Also, ensure the chain is properly riding in the channel of the tensioner arm. Verify once more that all timing marks are still aligned properly. With the tensioner activated, you are now ready to torque to yield the cam sprocket bolts. Use a 24mm wrench on the camshafts. Hex features as a backup during the process. Tighten the VVT phaser attachment bolts to 22 foot-pounds plus an additional 100 degrees. GM does offer a cam phaser holder tool for the torquing process. However, the process we show in this video without the tool is acceptable. For now, variable valve timing cam sprockets on earlier engines tighten the sprocket bolts to 63 foot-pounds plus an additional 30 degrees. Now, install the 2 variable valve timing solenoids. Next, install the upper guide, torque the bolts to 89 inch-pounds. It is not advised to rotate the engine by hand beyond this point. If the engine happens to be rotated, the colored timing marks on the chain will not immediately come back around and realign to the marks on the sprockets. But the sprocket timing marks will come back to their original positions every 2 rotations of the crank. You can now install the front cover and the valve cover. The front cover bolts torque to 18 foot-pounds, and the valve cover bolts torque to 89 inch-pounds. The installation of the new timing and balance shaft system is complete. To make sure the timing and balance shaft system operates properly, you must use OEM specified full synthetic 5W30 motor oil. For preventative maintenance, use an engine flush product with every engine oil change to reduce buildup in oil passages. Thanks for watching our installation video and have a safe driving experience.